After I drove all night for medicine and my father-in-law threw the bottle to the floor saying, "We don't trust you with our blood," my husband stayed silent. I sat in the car until dawn. Then one afternoon I knocked on their door holding a folder and began to read out loud about. I don't know why I kept trying. I think I was raised to believe that if you show up enough, if you help enough, if you stay calm when everyone else is yelling, eventually people will treat you like you matter. That's not how it turned out. Let me start with what happened that night. My father-in-law had just come home from the hospital. He's diabetic, he'd had some kind of reaction or spike or whatever, and it was serious enough that my husband called me from their house, saying his dad needed his medication. They couldn't find the bottle. His mother was already panicking, crying, yelling at my husband like he was 12 years old again. I said I'd go. I didn't even think twice. I had just gotten off a double shift, hadn't eaten, still had a headache from earlier. But I got in my car and drove across the city to the only pharmacy that had what he needed in stock. It was over 40 minutes away. The tech told me the insurance didn't go through. I paid out of pocket, $84 and change. I drove straight back to their place. It was close to 1:30 in the morning when I knocked on their door. My hands were shaking, not because I was nervous, just from exhaustion. My father-in-law opened the door, took one look at the bag, and asked what took so long. Before I could answer, he snatched the bottle out, looked at it, and asked why it wasn't the right one. I explained calmly, said the generic was all they had in stock and it was approved as a substitute. I even had the receipt. He stared at me, then said, flatly, "We don't trust you with our blood." Then he threw the bottle onto the floor. It didn't shatter, but the cap cracked. Some of it leaked. I looked at my husband. He was standing right behind his dad, silent. No shock on his face. No defense of me. Nothing. His mother came up next to him, crossed her arms, and said, "We told you this would happen." She doesn't listen. I just turned and walked out. Got back in my car, parked a few houses down the street. And I sat there. For hours. I didn't cry. I didn't scream. I didn't call anyone. I just sat with my hands on the steering wheel until the sun came up. Then I drove home. That was 2 weeks ago. Since then, my husband hasn't brought it up. Not once. He's been acting like everything's normal. I told him I was tired. He said, "Maybe just don't get involved next time." I asked him what that meant. He shrugged. So I started going through my files. Emails, texts, bills, screenshots. I printed it all out. All the times they made me feel small and I said nothing. All the times I helped, gave, paid, drove, stayed up late, put them first. All the times I swallowed it, thinking maybe next time they'd show some kind of basic decency. I wrote down dates. Notes. Memories I'd pushed down. The Thanksgiving they accused me of trying to sabotage the family meal with undercooked food. The night they found out I was pregnant, and his mother said, "Let's hope the baby doesn't come out with her attitude." The surgery week when I was the only one changing his dad's dressing while they all stayed in the other room. Every single thing I had stayed quiet about. I put it all in that folder. Then 2 days ago I called and said I was coming by. When I knocked, they looked confused but let me in. My husband was already there. I didn't sit down. I opened the folder, pulled out the first page, and read. August 14th, 2021, 3:42 a.m. I drove to a 24-hour pharmacy to get your insulin. Paid $84.16. You said you'd pay me back. You never did. I didn't bring it up. They looked at each other, then at me. I kept going. June 3rd, 2020. After your surgery, I took 5 days off work to clean, feed, and monitor you. When I called the doctor because your wound looked infected, you told your wife I was overreacting and dramatic. Still no one said anything. November 12th, 2019. You threw the chicken I cooked for Thanksgiving into the yard and said I was trying to poison the family. No one cleaned it up. I apologized. I turned to my husband. May 30th, 2018. You told them we were trying for a baby. Your dad said, "That woman is not the kind of stock you build legacy with." You told me, and I still went to dinner the next week. He didn't look at me. His mom whispered something under her breath, but I kept reading. I wasn't shaking this time. I wasn't yelling. My voice didn't even crack. I read every single page. 15 in total. When I got to the last one, I looked up.
There's more to this.
But that's where I'll stop for now. No one said anything after I finished reading. Not one word. The room was dead quiet, except for the sound of the wall clock ticking above their TV. My father-in-law looked at the folder like it was a pile of trash. My mother-in-law's face was tight, lips pressed together, like she was daring herself not to explode. My husband still hadn't looked up. I waited. After a full minute, my father-in-law said, "You came here to embarrass us?" I looked at him.
No.
I came here so I wouldn't keep pretending none of this happened. Then he laughed. Quiet, slow, bitter. He shook his head. You think you're some victim? You've always been the outsider. You never fit here.
You don't get this family.
I nodded once. You're right. I don't get people who spit on someone trying to help them. Then my husband finally spoke.
Still not looking at me.
Maybe this wasn't the right way to handle it. I stared at him. What exactly was the right way, then? Sitting in silence forever? Letting them throw medicine on the floor after I drove all night to get it? Watching you say nothing over and over again? He flinched.
Barely.
But he didn't respond. Then his mother stood up, walked out of the room, and came back holding a small, white envelope. She dropped it in my lap. You want to be repaid?
There.
You can leave now. I didn't even look inside. I don't want your money, I said. I want the truth acknowledged. She crossed her arms. That's not how families work. We don't read off grievances like lawyers. You want us to admit we're bad people? You think you're the only one who's ever been hurt. And then something strange happened. My husband's younger sister, who had been sitting quietly in the corner the whole time, pretending to scroll on her phone, looked up and said, "She's not wrong." Everyone turned toward her. What? My mother-in-law snapped. The sister shrugged. She's not wrong. You did say those things. You did treat her like crap. I was here. I saw it. My mother-in-law's voice dropped into that quiet, dangerous tone she uses when she's about to lose control. You're taking her side? The sister said nothing. Just looked at me, then back down at her phone.
I felt something loosen in my chest.
Not forgiveness. Not relief. Just confirmation. Like I hadn't made it all up. Like I wasn't crazy. My father-in-law was standing now. His face was red. This is our house. If you don't like how we run things, you can leave. Both of you. I looked at my husband again. Well, he still didn't move.
Didn't speak.
His silence was louder than the yelling. I picked up the folder, left the envelope on the table, and turned toward the door. I didn't expect anyone to stop me. They didn't. But right as I was stepping out, the sister stood up too. Wait. I turned back. She looked at me, then glanced at her parents. You're not crazy, she said. They just like having someone to hate, so they don't have to look at themselves. I nodded. She nodded back. Then my husband finally looked up at me. And all he said was, I didn't think it was this bad. I stared at him.
My voice came out flat.
You were there. I left. But the next day, something showed up at my door. And that's where things got worse. I'll write more when I can. The next day, around noon, I heard a knock at the door. I thought it might be a neighbor or a delivery, but when I opened it, there was a man I didn't recognize, maybe mid-40s, dark jacket, khakis. Behind him, on the curb, was a rental car. He looked at me like he already knew my name. You're Emily, right? I hesitated. Yeah. I'm Mark. I work with David. Your husband. I didn't say anything. I think we should talk. He held up a manila envelope. I let him in. I probably shouldn't have, but I was still too off balance from the day before to think clearly. We sat at the table. He opened the envelope. There were printed emails, account statements, screenshots. Nothing illegal, but enough to make my stomach turn. Turns out, my husband hadn't just been quiet when it came to his parents. He'd been talking about me at work. A lot. Complaining. Joking. Making up stories. Saying I was controlling. That I monitored his phone. That I didn't get along with his family because I was unstable and had episodes. that I didn't want kids, even though it was him who asked to delay. Mark said he wasn't trying to cause drama. But recently, something had happened. There'd been an internal HR issue. Someone had filed a complaint about David. Mark didn't say what, but he said my name had come up. Apparently, David had told someone I had mental health problems and implied I'd been violent before. That's when Mark started asking questions. He didn't believe it. Said I didn't come across that way at all. Said the whole thing fell off. That's why he came to me. He slid the last paper toward me. It was a draft of an affidavit someone had started.
About me.
David was trying to get ahead of something, Mark said. I think he's preparing for a separation. Maybe more. Whatever it is, it's not clean. I didn't cry. I sat there and read every page. There were things in there I'd never imagined he'd say. That I threatened to harm myself when we fought. That I'd thrown things. That I had unresolved family trauma that made me unstable. That he'd stayed to protect me. I asked Mark why he was showing me all this. He said he didn't think it was right. Said he had a sister who'd gone through something similar, and watching me sit there in front of that folder yesterday, completely calm, just didn't line up with what David had told everyone at work. After he left, I just sat there. I didn't know what to do. I called my husband. He didn't pick up. I didn't even leave a message. I started going through our home office, pulling out papers, tax returns, legal documents. I wasn't sure what I was looking for. Maybe proof that I was still in control of something. That's when I found it, tucked into a manila folder labeled car lease, a document I'd never seen. It was a power of attorney form, dated 3 months ago, signed by me. Only I didn't sign it. The handwriting wasn't mine. Not even close. He forged my signature. That's where I'm at right now. I haven't confronted him. Not yet. But I will. And whatever comes after that, I won't be quiet anymore. I didn't sleep that night. I sat at the kitchen table with the fake power of attorney form in front of me. I kept checking the signature, my hands trembling, even though I already knew it wasn't mine. Around 2 a.m., I started digging. Bank accounts, our joint credit card, the mortgage statements, the car note, every password I still had access to. That's when the bottom really fell out. 3 weeks ago, right around the time his father's health crisis began, my husband had transferred $18,000 out of our joint savings into a new account, one I'd never seen before. The transfer description just said family. I scrolled further down. Smaller withdrawals. $300 here, $700 there. Always labeled household or medical. But none of it lined up with our actual bills. Then I opened our email account. Looked at the sent folder. That's when I saw a string of emails between my husband and his father. Subject line: handling her. It wasn't long, but it was enough. Things like, she's asking more questions. We need to move fast. Do you still have the papers I gave you? Once she's out of the picture, we'll handle the car and the account. No context. No details. Just enough to make my stomach turn. The next morning, I went to my bank branch in person, brought the power of attorney form, showed it to the manager I've known for years. She frowned and said she'd escalate it to their fraud department. She also told me, quietly, that the new account was not a joint account. It was in my husband's name only, but had my social security number listed as a secondary. Someone had added me without my consent. I walked out of the bank feeling like the air had changed. Like every sound was too loud, every face a stranger's. I called my husband at work.
He picked up this time.
Where are you? I asked. Lunch, he said. Why? Because we need to talk.
Now.
There was a pause. About what? I found the papers. I know about the account. He went silent for a long time. Then he said, Emily, don't do anything stupid. This isn't what you think. I almost laughed. You forged my signature. That's not. Just don't go to my parents' house, okay? Whatever you do, don't go there. He hung up. I stood there on the sidewalk outside the bank, phone still to my ear, heart pounding. Why would he tell me not to go to his parents' house? I drove there anyway. When I pulled up, the sister, the one who had spoken up for me, was sitting on the porch steps, smoking a cigarette. She stood up when she saw me. "You shouldn't be here," she said quietly. "Why?" She glanced back at the house, lowered her voice. "Because they've been planning something. I overheard them last night. They think you're going to snap. They're trying to make it look like you're unstable, like you're a danger to David." My skin went cold. She stepped closer. "They're setting you up. They've been gathering stuff for weeks. Messages, recordings. Half of it's fake. They're going to go to court and say you're abusive. They've even got a doctor willing to write something about you being mentally unfit." I couldn't even breathe. The sister looked at me, her eyes wet. "You need to get out before they pull whatever they're planning." That's where I'm at now. In my car, parked 2 blocks from their house, folder on the passenger seat, fake power of attorney form on top. My whole marriage, my whole life feels like a trap I walked into blindfolded. And I think they're about to spring it. I sat in the car for a long time. My hands were shaking, but not from fear anymore. It was something else, a kind of cold clarity. For years I had been reacting, fixing, rescuing, staying quiet. For once, I wasn't going to react. I was going to move. I called a lawyer that a coworker had recommended months ago when she went through her own messy divorce. The lawyer picked up on the first ring. I told her everything about the forged papers, the money transfers, the emails, the sister's warning. She didn't hesitate. "You need to secure your accounts and file a report immediately. And don't confront him until you have everything copied." I did exactly that. Drove straight to FedEx. Scanned every paper in my folder. Printed copies. Backed it up to a cloud account under a new email. The lawyer sent me forms to sign electronically. She also gave me the number for a private investigator. By that evening, I had copies of everything, including those emails from his father. I also filed a report at the police station about the forged power of attorney. They didn't arrest him on the spot, but the officer said it would be flagged and assigned to a detective. That night, I went back to our house. My husband was there, sitting at the kitchen table like nothing was wrong. "Emily, we can talk." I cut him off. "You're going to want to listen." I set down a flash drive on the table. That's every transfer, every forged signature, every email. Already with my lawyer. Already with the police. He went pale. "It's not what you think. You forged my name. You stole our money. You and your parents were building a case to call me unstable. You wanted me out of the picture." He opened his mouth, but nothing came out. Then I told him the part he didn't know. "I've already frozen the joint accounts. I've already moved my share. You're on your own now." His face changed. "You don't understand. I was just protecting yourself?"
Yeah.
"From me. The person who paid your father's medical bills and cleaned up your family's messes. The one you were too cowardly to defend." He pushed back from the table, voice rising. "You're destroying everything." I didn't flinch.
No.
"You did." I left that night. Stayed at a friend's. 2 days later, the private investigator sent me something. Photos of my husband meeting with a man behind a strip mall, handing over a thick envelope. Inside, the PI said was cash and a letter with my name on it. My lawyer moved fast. Filed for divorce. Filed for a restraining order. Sent everything to the DA's office. Then I did something I'd been terrified to do. I emailed every single one of my husband's HR supervisors. Attached the evidence. The forged papers. The PI photos.
His own emails about me.
Within 48 hours, he was suspended. A week later, he was fired. I didn't stop there. I sent the same packet to his parents' church, their community group, his father's employer, everyone who had ever been told I was unstable. No lies, no exaggeration, just the truth. In writing, his parents started calling, first yelling, then begging, then threatening. I blocked every number. The sister, the only one who had ever spoken up, messaged me once. "They're melting down. You did it." I wrote back, "No, they did it to themselves." The investigation into the forged signature went forward. The bank froze the account. The DA's office took the case. Last week, I walked into the courthouse to finalize the restraining order. My husband was there, but he couldn't even look at me. His lawyer spoke for him. When the judge asked if I had anything to say, I stood up. I believed in a family that didn't exist. I let them break me down one piece at a time. I helped them while they planned how to destroy me. I stayed silent. That was my mistake. But I'm not silent now. I could feel the whole courtroom watching. Then the judge granted the order. When it was over, I walked past my husband, without a word. Past his parents sitting on the bench, faces gray. I didn't look back. Outside the courthouse, the air was bright and cold. For the first time in years, I felt like my life was mine again. Not clean. Not easy.
But mine.
They tried to bury me with silence, lies, and paperwork. I dug myself out with the truth, and then I buried them with it instead.